It's the 20th of August 2017. Here's Double Wicket Maiden, the cricket news bulletin show on Bizz 99.9 FM Substitute Radio. I'm your presenter for today, Chukka Wilson. Here's what's been making news in the cricketing world. The first test between England and the West Indies has ended within 3 days, as England won by a mammoth margin of an innings and 209 runs. This is the 39th largest margin of victory in the history of Test cricket, and one of the worst defeats that England has ever imposed upon the West Indies. The West Indies began day 3 at 44 for 1 in their first innings, and lost all their remaining 19 wickets in the one day, with still an hour to play to go before stumps, getting bowled out for 168 in the first innings and 137 in the second, nowhere near even approaching the possibility of making England bat again. Only one West Indies batsman made a score above 50 in the match, with Jermaine Blackwood scoring a flamboyant and quick 79 not out in the first innings. The next best performance was a defiant and stodgy 40 from Craig Brathwaite. The English bowlers shared around the wickets. Across the two innings combined, Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad each took 5 wickets. Roland Jones took 4, Ben Stokes 1, and Moeen Ali 3. All of the bowlers were really in their element during this day, able to control and dictate the game comfortably, never needing to stress out themselves or worry, and it was just a matter of time before the wickets fell. Some of the wickets fell thanks to excellent swing and seam bowling, to which the West Indies batsmen had no response, and some of the wickets fell to batsmen playing wild, ridiculously out of context shots and essentially throwing their wickets away. There are 2 more tests to go in the series, and at this stage it would be impressive just to see the West Indies able to force England to bat twice, let alone put up a serious competition. Eight months in, and thus far 2017 has not been a good year for Australian cricket. There was the disappointing series defeat over in India, despite winning the first test, failing to advance further in the Champions Trophy in England, and the whole sport was brought into disrepute during the pay dispute hullabaloo between Cricket Australia and the Australian Cricketers Association. In seeking to redress this problem and put his team back on track, Darren Lehmann has written an open letter to all stakeholders in Australian cricket, asking them for advice as to how he might turn things around and return Australian cricket to its winning ways. In his letter, Lehmann points out that it was only 12 months ago that Australia was number 1 in the world in both tests and one-day internationals. The only way that this dominance can be recovered and the whole train gotten back on the rails, he claims, is if everyone is going in the same direction and faithfully supporting the Australian cricket project. Quite obviously, much of Lehmann's letter is standard public relations and political manoeuvring. He knows that he and his team have come under lots of criticism over these past 10 months following messes and problems both on and off the field, and his letter is aimed at defending his coaching style and his legacy by reasserting the history of good team culture and victories since he took over the position 4 years ago. But apart from just trying to protect his job, Lehmann is also inviting former Australian cricketers to come into the change rooms and work with the players directly, perhaps by giving them advice, or perhaps helping them out with training. This could be interpreted in 2 different ways. Either Lehmann feels he's desperate or understaffed or doesn't know where to go, and is opening the door to former players as a way to recover the situation and be guided towards the next flag post. Or perhaps he's sick and tired of being disparaged and overanalyzed by all these armchair critics in the media, and so by offering this open invitation to anyone and everyone who would want it, Lehmann is effectively preemptively calling the bluffs of anyone who would dare suggest that they could do a better coaching job than he can. With the approaching new season of Australian domestic cricket, the Sheffield Shield will be trialling a new concussion substitution rule. If a player has been ruled out of the match due to a concussion, and this is made official by medical staff, then the team will be permitted to substitute that player with a like-for-like substitute. Cricket Australia had already introduced such a rule last year in the domestic one-day and 2020 tournaments for both men's and women's cricket, and this expansion into the Sheffield Shield is the obvious next step. The ICC have dealt with all the legal and administrative paperwork, clearing a path for the competition to use this policy without running into any other rule problems. The international body had rejected the proposal this time last year, but have been since won over to the change. The hope is that after a trial period of 1 or 2 years, where the rule is able to prove itself useful and beneficial, that it might get further expanded into international cricket. The MCC, however, have been reluctant to take the ultimate step in the process and have a concussion clause instituted into the official laws of the game, which would automatically apply to all forms of cricket played everywhere across the world. A Cricket Australia spokesperson said, quote, "Cricket Australia has been a strong advocate for concussion substitutes, and we have successfully introduced this into our other competitions. We look forward to formalising the introduction of this rule into the Sheffield Shield ahead of this season." And that's the news for this episode. This has been Double Wicket Maiden, the Cricket News Bulletin Show for the 20th of August 2017. I'm Chukka Wilson, and you're listening to Bizz 99.9 FM Substitute Radio. Until the next Cricket News Bulletin, remember to cock your wrists, play with soft hands, and don't let your centre of gravity go off balance.